Well, as usual, the only constant is change. We saw some new quarterbacks, some old quarterbacks back in the saddle in week 11, but we also saw another rookie debut, Shadur Sanders. Didn't go that great. I mean, look, I know it was his first start. That was pretty brutal. I mean, can you take anything positive away from that? Is there any hope from what you saw, like a silver lining?
Um, it can't get worse.
Well, I mean, we'll see if we get more Shadur Sanders in week 12, but I know this. We're going to go through every matchup in week 12 and tell you which quarterbacks and tight ends you should start or sit. Got 4 teams that are going to be off. It's the Broncos, the Chargers, the Dolphins, and the Commanders. And we do have some must starts regardless of matchup at quarterback: Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts. At tight end, Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, George Kittle, and Tyler Warren. Before we get into the Week 12 matchups, quick reminder, if you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, take a second and do it now. We're still on the way to 100K. Help us get there. First game of the week is Josh Allen and the Bills taking on the Texans in Houston. All right, so coming off his pretty nifty 6-touchdown performance, pretty sure you should lock in Josh Allen. What about the tight end position, though? Remember, Dalton Kincaid missed last week. Probably going to be highly questionable if he's ready to go for this week. Neither Dawson Knox nor Jackson Haas or anybody really stepped up last week. I mean, is there any reason to even look at the tight end position here in Buffalo right now?
Nah, even if Dalton Kincaid plays, I mean, Texans 6 toughest versus tight ends, and you know he's not fully healthy here. You can't start him.
Yeah, I'm not waiting to see if he comes back. Not playing him even if he does. And then Davis Mills, I mean, he's at least filled in somewhat admirably. What do you do with this quarterback situation? And then that includes Dalton Schultz at tight end.
Davis Mills, I'll say super flex. He somehow has been better than CJ Stroud, which is crazy to say, but he kind of has been. But this is not a great matchup against this Buffalo defense, which has been playing very well lately. Dalton Schultz, I will say, even though Bills are the toughest against tight ends right now, I'm going to say solid, like lower end solid, because he's just been getting so many targets that at least he gives you a floor.
Yeah, I mean, as far as tight ends go, you could do worse. He's getting targeted. Dalton Schultz is on the lower end of the streaming radar this week. I'd really like to just avoid the quarterback situation this week. I know Mills has been okay, but remember, he faced the Titans last week. You know, this is the Bills. They might need to pass a lot. Doesn't mean he'll be efficient with it. So I'm just going to sit. On Sunday, let's start things off by talking Colts at Chiefs. Should be a good one. So, well, at tight ends, the must start here, remember, it's not Travis Kelce. It's the rookie, Tyler Warren. You lock him in. Quarterback, of course, for Indianapolis is still Daniel Jones. He's been solid all year, but we've started to see him a little shakier the last couple of weeks. Those turnovers are starting to creep up again. Does he fix that problem coming off the bye week, or are you concerned?
I'm going to hope he fixes that problem, but this is not a good spot on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm just going to say a streamer this week. There are still worse options that I would not start over Daniel Jones, but there are also much better ones this week.
Yeah, that's the thing, is on the road in Kansas City, this is a very, very good defense. You know, Daniel Jones, he can't be lower than streamer because you know he has that rushing upside, but don't feel like it's going to be a great week for him. Do you feel it's going to be any better for the Kansas City offense? Again, we're going to have to wrap our heads around the fact that this defense looks better than this offense these days. Pat Mahomes has been a little inconsistent as of late. So how do you treat him this week and Travis Kelce?
Yeah, it's weird. Travis Kelce has actually somehow looked better as the year has gone on this season, which is kind of weird. So I'm going to say Travis Kelce's solid. Colts have allowing the 5th most points to tight ends here. This is a good matchup for Kelce. I'm going to also say Mahomes solid. He's had 2 tough matchups in a row. Yes, the Colts defense has been good this year, but he's at home. This feels like sort of a get-right spot, so I'm going to say solid.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what gives here because, you know, that Colts offense has been rolling all year, but the Chiefs defense is tough. So, like, what do the Chiefs need to do here? I just don't feel like it's a big game for either, so I will say low end solid for Mahomes. I think he'll be fine. And then Kelce, well, same thing. I think he's solid. We still got plenty of more matchups to break down for week 12. first while you're getting your fancy lineup set up to win. Don't forget to get your winning picks in on Underdog. And if you haven't tried it yet, this is a great time to sign up. Use code ENDGAME, and new customers on Underdog, you're going to get $100 extra bonus funds added to your account instantly as soon as you play $5 towards any pick. You still get that gimme, an absolutely free pick as soon as you sign up, and still a deposit match of 50%. Get up to $1,000 worth of bonus cash also added to your account. Just make sure you use code ENDGAME when you check out. I know we got the Seahawks taking on the Titans in Tennessee. Sam Darnold, worst game of the season, let's face it. You know, I feel like facing the Titans feels like a get-right spot for him. And then, look, we have to talk about A.J. Barner. How many catches? Like, really? This felt like a really out-of-nowhere performance for a random tight end. Are you buying into it?
Well, I'm not like fully buying into it, but I dove into this on the video where I talked about players that are kind of trending up, skyrocketing type players. He ran the same amount of routes as Cooper Kupp. He had second most routes on the team behind JSN, and he had a high target share and a decent first read percentage. Just didn't feel like one of those like fluky games. Now, I'm not expecting him to do that again, of course, so it's still very risky here, but you can stream him now. I think he's at least on the streaming radar. And then I think this is a bounce back spot for Sam Darnold against this Titans defense. He's had 3 tough matchups in the last 4 games. And the one game where it wasn't a tough matchup, he was great. I'm going to say solid.
Yeah, for Darnold, of course, he'll be fine this week. The only problem for fantasy is just he won't need to throw the ball that much to beat Tennessee, let's face it. So he's just very solid. Look, Barner, not just 10 catches, he only had 1 fewer target than JSN. It's crazy. It's not going to happen again, I'm pretty sure, but he at least is on the streaming radar. And then let's just get this out of the way and talk Titans as we do. Cam Ward, Chig Okonkwo, any interest?
Against the Seahawks defense, no.
Not even super flex, not even tight end premium.
Do you want to get advice from Pierre and myself at the tip of your fingertips? Start, sit, waiver wire, trades, and more? Well, you can do all of this and more on our new app, Draft Lane. We have the ability to view your roster, waivers, and more to give you the right feedback to make the perfect choice. Download Draft Lane from the App Store or Google Play, or use these handy QR codes. And first-time users can use code ENDGAME to get 10 free credits and get your questions answered today.
The Vikings taking on the Packers in Week 12. This could be a good one. But is J.J. McCarthy going to be any good? And honestly, he's looked pretty rough the last couple of weeks. On the road against this Packers defense, you got to be a little nervous.
I got to be more than... Actually, I'm not nervous at all because I'm not even going to start J.J. McCarthy this week. So I don't even worry about it. On the road against the Packers, no thanks. And same with Hawkinson. No thank you.
Fair enough. Why think about it, right? Look, McCarthy still has some learning to do. He's not doing it in my fantasy lineup. Now, on the Packers side, of course, Jordan Love is usually pretty solid. You got to wonder, though, because keep in mind, Josh Jacobs, well, don't expect him to play this week. Does that mean that Love does more of the heavy lifting on offense? Is this good for him, or is this just bad for the offense because it makes it harder for them to move the chains?
Well, I guess we'll see. You got to think they might lean on him more, especially near the goal line, but they might not. They might just continue to run the football. It's not like Emmanuel Wilson has been bad or anything here. And look, Vikings are not necessarily a great matchup for QBs. Over the last 2 games, this guy hasn't even thrown for 200 yards. It's like he's been good in real life and just kind of okay for fantasy. I think he's just going to be kind of okay for fantasy again this week. Streamer only. And then Luke Musgrave does not look like the one-for-one replacement for Tucker Kraft, to say the least.
No, I think we can unstash Musgrave at this point. And as far as Love, hey, got to recognize he's missing Tucker Kraft, right? His favorite target, basically, for this early portion of the season. And now possibly Jacobs. This can't be a good thing. The Vikings do get pressure on the quarterback pretty efficiently. So Love, to me, is barely even a streamer. Jets at the Ravens. Well, if you got Lamar Jackson, no suspense as far as who you start at quarterback. And the suspense is over. We know who's starting for the Jets at quarterback in Week 12. And it's Tyrod Taylor. All right. Tyrod Taylor, Mason Taylor, any Taylor for you?
Maybe a Taylor, but just not one on the Jets here. I like the Ravens since their bye, second toughest versus QBs. Now, I know they've played a lot of bad QBs, including the Browns QBs, but still, like, this isn't the defense we saw earlier in the year that was just getting lit up by everybody. So, no, I don't want any part of this.
Kind of easily avoid this Jets passing offense with no Garrett Wilson there. The quarterback does not even matter. Do the Baltimore tight ends matter? I mean, they usually do, but this year has just felt a little different. Mark Andrews barely clinging to relevance, and honestly, I don't know why people even ask about Isaiah Likely anymore.
No, Isaiah Likely, no. But look, Mark Andrews, I'm going to say solid this week. It just feels like this guy just finds a way to score no matter what. How does he take what was going to be a tush-push, spin-a-rama, runs for 30 yards? Are you kidding me here? It's the Jets. This defense is horrible right now. He just finds a way to score every week. He's solid this week.
Well, I know he could score again, but doesn't that just kind of make him a streaming option? I mean, there's plenty of guys who could score. It is the Jets. I get that, but at the same time, do they really need to pass much? I don't know. He's a streamer with scoring upside, and Isaiah Likely is nothing. Giants get to travel to Detroit this week and face the Lions. Could be Jackson Dart back in the saddle here. Not nearly as fun as Jameis Winston, but maybe better for the team. So if Dart plays on the road against Detroit, that is a tough task. If he doesn't play, then what do you do with Jameis Winston?
Well, I think if Dart plays, I'm just going to call him a streamer this week because, like you said, I mean, this Lions defense looks good, and now they're in Detroit here. But he does run, and he's been fairly good for fantasy, so I'll say streamer. Jameis, no chance. This guy didn't even have a big game last week, and he really should have had 4 or 5 interceptions. The Packers defensive backs were dropping he was throwing balls right to guys, and they were just dropping them. Should have been a horrible game for Winston last week. Theo Johnson, the tight end here, I will say a streamer only if it's Jackson Dart. If it's Jameis, I hate to say it, but I think it makes me lower on Theo Johnson.
Well, I'll say this. Dart is what he usually will be. A streaming option, either high end or low end. That rushing upside keeps him relevant if you need somebody. Jameis Winston, I'll say at least super flex or deep streamer, because remember, last week was a really tough task against that Packers defense. I don't feel like this Lions defense is better than that defense. And, some of the rust got knocked off, hopefully. Theo Johnson did not come through big like some people thought he might, but again, he's at least on the streaming radar because he could always score. And for the Lions, Jared Goff, not his best day, week 11, but that was a really tough defense in Philly that he had to face. Back at home, and now it's the Giants.
Yeah, this feels like potentially the most bounce back spot ever in history. At home against the Giants, coming off a game in bad weather on the road in Philly. Jared Goff, a strong start this week. And then I'll say Brock Wright, Sam Laporta, we know is not coming back anytime soon. He's not going to be a one-to-one replacement for Sam Laporta, but he's at least better than Luke Musgrave as far as replacement tight ends go here. Giants aren't terrible against tight ends, but again, the Lions are at home. They could score a ton of points. I'll say he's streamable.
Yeah, I mean, everything points to Goff, favorably here. He's at home. Obviously, not a great defense, especially against the quarterback. Just don't know how much they're really going to have to press it. Probably going to be a good Jahmyr Gibbs week. So he's very, very solid. And then, obviously, Laporta being out, that's a huge blow there. I don't know. Brock Wright feels just a little too risky for me. Now, this week, the Steelers get to travel to Soldier Field to take on the Bears. So Aaron Rodgers is very unlikely to play in this game. Let's just put it that way. Mason Rudolph, he's back. Yeah, he's still with the Steelers. Does this do anything for you fantasy-wise? Any of the tight ends who couldn't go off against the Bengals last week, mind you, do any of them have streaming value?
Well, I'll say, look, Darnell, you kind of called it, right? It's not going to be Freiermuth, it's going to be Darnell Washington. Now, he didn't go off, but he was the leading guy here, and this is now 2 straight games where it's kind of oh, maybe Darnell Washington's becoming the tight end 1 here. Jonnu Smith looks irrelevant in this offense. So I'll say Darnell Washington because, the Bears aren't terrible versus tight ends. They're not the Bengals against tight ends, but they're not terrible. You could stream them. Freiermuth, nope, didn't come through last week. Now he's back to being a sit. I'll say Mason Rudolph, super flex, because at least he does have upside. We know he will, take shots and things like that. And the Bears aren't a terrible matchup.
Only because it's the Bears defense, which hasn't been great against the pass. I could super flex Mason Rudolph. I don't want any part of this tight end room. This is so Art Smith, right? Every other week, trying to fool us into knowing which second or third string tight end is going to get targets. Nah, I'm done with this. All right, what about Caleb Williams and that Bears offense? Also, a couple tight ends in the mix there between the rookie Colston Loveland and the veteran Cole Kmet.
Yeah, I think the only tight end I would have any interest in is Colston Loveland, to be honest. I'll say you can stream them. There are worse options here, and the Steelers do allow the 6 most points to tight ends, but not a ton of upside here. I don't love it. And then I'm going to call Caleb Williams just a streamer as well. This is definitely a better matchup than he had last week, but it's also not like the Steelers have been a little bit better recently.
Yeah, the Steelers defense has come on compared to early in the year, but also this Bears offense has settled down into a run-first kind of offense. Caleb Williams, of course, he runs a little bit, so that keeps him streamable. But yeah, just I don't know if there's going to be enough volume. I mean, do we really expect this to be a high-scoring game? I don't. Right now we got the Patriots at the Bengals. We have the young Drake May facing the experienced Joe Flacco. Let's just put it that way. All right. Now, we don't have Drake May as a must start here. This sounds odd because we had been saying just start him, right? He's been so good, and now he gets this Cincinnati defense. Why wouldn't you start Drake May?
Well, I'm still, to me, he's like right the very next guy, like borderline must start here. This is the Bengals. He's got to be a strong start. But there is worry, like he feels like he's, at least recently, he's been better in real life than in fantasy. And like last week, even though the Patriots offense was great, he himself wasn't great for fantasy. He was great in real life, but not for fantasy. That's always the worry here. But it's the Bengals. I got to take a chance on Drake May here. And then I'm going to say Hunter Henry this week, solid, because it's the Bengals. I know Pat Freiermuth didn't smash, but come on, they have Jonnu Smith, they have Darnell Washington. They don't throw to other tight ends here. I want to take a chance on Hunter Henry this week.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a time to roll out Hunter Henry, this would be it, right? Now, of course, it could always be like the random Austin Hooper game, but whatever. Like, if you have Hunter Henry, try it out. And then Drake May agreed, really strong more for the floor than anything. I mean, again, the question is how much will they have to really pass against this offense? We're probably going to just see Travion Henderson go off. But still, if you have a very high floor and a guy like Drake May, who also is pretty good at running himself, yeah, why not just start him? Joe Flacco, statistically, looked very different after the bye than before it. That week off was supposed to help, right? All right, does he get better this week? It's a tough assignment against this Pats defense.
Yeah, he looked terrible last week. I mean, he looked like a deer in headlights out there, and that interception, I mean, he threw it right, like the defender was just standing there and he's like, here, you take it. Like, oh man, what happened? What happened, Joe? What happened here? You cannot feel good. I'm just going to say super flex this week. And then tight end Noah Fant. One thing about the Patriots is they aren't necessarily great against tight ends. They're allowing the 9th most points to tight ends. Jamar Chase is out. You could stream him.
I mean, you're right. Chase out vacates targets, but this defense is really tough, and he hasn't done enough. I'm going to ignore Fant and Flacco. Sadly, this week, you're right. Super flex is as high as you can go. Browns taking on the Raiders. Well, Brock Bowers back to must-start territory. Don't worry about him. You could worry about everything in the Cleveland offense. Let's start with quarterback. Okay, so yeah, Shedeur Sanders finally got thrown into the fire only after an injury and a trade happened to the first two quarterbacks. Look, so if Shedeur Sanders does get to start again, because remember, Dylan Gabriel in concussion protocol, is there a chance that he actually looks somewhat prepared for the NFL?
Well, let's hope so. I really do hope so. I mean, like, remember, he hasn't been taking first-team reps in practice or anything. I think he's been like scout team. He's been playing on the scout team or something. So, you know, hopefully he gets a week of first-team reps. It is the Raiders here, but come on. I cannot start Shedeur Sanders after what I saw last week. I'll say Dylan Gabriel, if he clears concussion protocol and plays, you could start him in Superflex. It's the Raiders. He's at least serviceable. And then Harold Fannin, if it's Gabriel, I think he's streamable against the Raiders. But if it's Shedeur, no chance.
Well, despite the fact it's the Raiders, definitely not a bad matchup, I'm good just avoiding this entire offense, honestly. Fannin and Njoku still kind of eating into each other's targets and upside limited. I can do better. And then look, again, it's weird. I don't remember the last time it felt like everyone was rooting against someone to succeed, like Shedeur Sanders. I don't fully understand why. I would like to see him do something out there, but I'm not going to see it on my fantasy squad anywhere. And Dylan Gabriel, honestly, I'm done here. What does he actually give you that helps you win? Not enough. Look, we could kind of say the same thing for Geno Smith here. It feels like he's barely hanging on to that starting job for the Raiders. Is there any reason that you would want him in fantasy?
No, against this Browns defense, this might be the hardest no of the week.
Yeah, exactly. Needs some upside. He's not giving it to you. Jaguars at the Cardinals this week. Trey McBride continues to, well, basically just own the tight end position here. You got him. You're happy. You start him. Let's go to the Jacksonville side before we talk quarterback in Arizona. Trevor Lawrence, it's been okay. He might get his tight end Brenton Strange back. He's got his practice window opened. How do you feel these guys might do against the Cardinals?
Look, the Cardinals have actually been pretty good versus QBs this year. Trevor Lawrence could always sneak in a rushing touchdown like he did last week. But if he doesn't, he really isn't giving you much. I'll just say super flex here. And Cardinals, again, they're giving up the 10th most points to tight ends, but I can't love Brenton Strange here. I'll say risky streamer. I almost just want to say sit.
I'll go sit. I need to see it first. Again, there's not tremendous upside here with a guy like Strange anyways. So I can wait it out. And then Trevor Lawrence, again, I feel like he's just going to live in the super flex range for me. Without that rushing touchdown, which could happen, which could not happen. You know, he just, again, not enough upside here. Liam Cohen, look, give him props as a coach. He's done a great job. But because he's taking the ball out of Lawrence's hands more often than not, they don't just sit back and pass it. So just limits his upside. And in Arizona, we saw an epic performance from Jacoby Brissett. Seriously, he had a Joe Flacco moment. I know he's not nearly that old, but man, ton of yardage, a ton of pass attempts. There's no way that happens again, right?
Probably not. This doesn't feel like a game where they're going to be getting rolled like they were last week. But look, I had him as a high-end streamer all week until we heard that Marvin Harrison had appendicitis. And I was like, well, he's losing one of his top weapons. I guess I'll move him into Superflex. I regret that. That was such a good matchup. He's thrown for at least 258 yards and 2 touchdowns in every one of his starts this year. I think we have to accept the fact that Jacoby Brissett is actually putting up good numbers for fantasy. He's actually a viable fantasy QB. This is not a great matchup here, but I almost don't care. He's still a streaming option this week.
Yeah, and it's possible Harrison does come back. And you know what? Brissett having his best season, if he just keeps it going here. Now, again, let's not go crazy. Don't think he'll throw nearly as much as last week. So he's a solid streamer. All right, let's talk Eagles at Cowboys. Should be a good one. Remember, this is a rematch from the season opener. Jalen Hurts still a must start. Remember, he ran for 2 touchdowns when these teams met earlier this year. All right, what about Dallas Goedert? He's been living in the solid tier. Does he stay there?
Yeah, why not? I know, last week, you got to throw last week out the window. Both teams, Lions and Eagles, that was a game neither team was able to really throw the ball. They should have a much easier time against the Cowboys in Dallas here. I think he's solid.
Yeah, exactly. Dallas defense, sure, better than it used to be. Not a great pass defense. They didn't exactly shut down Brock Bowers. So Dallas Goedert at least has that floor. He should be solid once again. Now, on the other side, the Dallas offense has still looked good. They put up a decent amount of points in Monday Night Football, but this Philly defense now has been on lockdown mode. Can they quiet the Cowboys offense?
Yeah, this is going to be tough because the Cowboys offense looked so good coming out of the bye. Granted, that was the Raiders. Remember the last time these teams played, they held Dak Prescott to just 188 yards and no touchdowns. But I don't know if they're going to do that again. But at the same time, this is honestly probably going to be my toughest call of the week. Because on the one hand, it's man, it's Dak Prescott. But on the other hand, it's it's the Eagles, but he's at home. I don't know. I'm going to say super flex only this week, but the best possible super flex option you could possibly have.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, super flex. He's not even one of my favorite streamers. Again, guys we talked about that you wouldn't think would be over Dak, Jacoby Brissett, yeah, give me him over Dak. This Eagles defense over the last 5 games has allowed a total of 3 passing touchdowns while getting 3 interceptions to quarterbacks. I mean, this is now, along with the Houston Texans, one of those teams you just don't want to start your quarterback against them. And for that reason, you cannot love Jake Ferguson, but I mean, of course, he could always score a touchdown. I mean, he's probably still at least streamable, right?
Yeah, I think this week I'm going to drop him down to the streaming tier. He's got touchdown upside at least.
All right, now another tough divisional matchup. No, I'm just kidding. It's the Falcons and the Saints. All right, so these 2 teams are going to square off here, and they're going to be without Michael Penix Jr. in Atlanta. His season is over. Kirk Cousins is back, but he does not have Drake London to throw to because he's also going to miss this week. All right, so Cousins, at least he's got Kyle Pitts, right?
Yeah, at least he's got Kyle Pitts, I guess. It doesn't, I mean, come on, Kirk Cousins, going back to last year even, this has been horrible. He's been horrible this year. Like, no, there's no world where I'm starting Kirk Cousins. I will move Kyle Pitts into the solid tier. I can't say I love it here, but look, someone's got to get the targets. It can't all go to Darnell Mooney.
Well, I mean, you should like Kyle Pitts quite a bit. Again, London vacates a ton of targets, and the Saints aren't good at all against tight ends. And remember when Cousins started the last time, Pitts had a pretty decent game. So I think Pitts is very solid. I'll keep Kirk Cousins as a super flex option just because it's the Saints he's facing. Then for New Orleans, Tyler Shuck making another start here. Juwan Johnson, remember, had been coming back on a little bit before their bye. And, oh, yeah, we can't forget Taysom Hill.
Well, I can forget Taysom Hill this week. I'm sure Juice will remind us multiple times about Taysom Hill, but I don't even think I have Taysom Hill on any fantasy teams, and I certainly don't have Taysom Hill in any fantasy lineups. Juwan Johnson, on the other hand, though, is going to be solid. This guy, again, this is not a great matchup. The Falcons very tough against tight ends, but any tight end getting this kind of target share, you really can't bench him. He's got to be solid. And then Shuck, I will reluctantly put him in the super flex tier. Falcons kind of middle of the road against QBs, but they've been not so good on defense lately. I guess you could do worse than Tyler Shuck. Probably, maybe.
Oh, you could. But look, if I can keep Cousins as a super flex option, I can keep Shuck as an option here too. This Falcons defense, man, what has happened to them lately? Agree, Juwan Johnson. I think if you're looking for help at tight end this week, you need somebody off the waiver wire, and he was my top choice, and he's available in about half of all fantasy leagues, so you can go check if he's available. Taysom Hill, you don't have to bother checking. And tonight, we're going to have the Bucs taking on the Rams, another big matchup between some good offenses, but are these teams going to go back and forth, kind of like the Bucs did with the Bills, or is this going to be kind of bogged down by, some better defense like the Rams did against the Seahawks last week? What do you expect from Baker Mayfield, who, despite all the points they scored, still didn't really have a big game?
Yeah, I was a little worried about Baker last week. Bills' defense has been really good lately, but the Rams' defense has been even better lately. So I'm a little worried about Baker again this week. I'm just going to say a streamer here. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that he ran in that touchdown, and he always has that potential, but he's not like Josh Allen or anything, or Lamar, but he can't always do that. He would have really had a bad game last week. Then Cade Otton, like, what happened to Cade Otton last week? This guy just completely disappeared. I will say, though, the Rams are 11th worst versus tight end, so maybe he bounces back this week, but man, can't say anything more than a streamer for Cade Otton.
Yeah, Otton's still in the streaming territory, but can't feel great about him. And the thing is with Baker Mayfield here, it feels like all the weapons that he's missing, are these guys injured and out? It feels like it's catching up now, right? Oh yeah, Mike Evans isn't out there. Oh yeah, Chris Godwin still isn't playing. Oh yeah, Bucky Irving has been out. It feels like now it's like sinking in, and on the road against a pretty good Rams pass defense, he's just a streamer. Now Matthew Stafford, who had been rolling all season long, kind of a disappointing output for him last week, but that was against the Seattle defense. This Bucs defense isn't nearly as tough against the pass.
No, not nearly as tough. And he still threw for 2 touchdowns last week. I mean, he's had 2 or more touchdowns in all but one game this year. And this should be a game where not only does he throw for 2 or more touchdowns, but he also racks up plenty of yards against his Bucs defense. I'm going to say very, very solid start, Matthew Stafford, this week.
Agree. Guy like Stafford better than Baker in this matchup, and he should get back to his old ways. Very solid. Then Monday night, it's going to be the Panthers taking on the 49ers. George Kittle, welcome back to must-start territory. That's the Kittle we remember. All right, now let's talk about the quarterbacks here. Bryce Young, best game of his life, or at least his NFL life. Now he gets a road game against the Niners. Normally that would scare you, but this Niners defense isn't very scary these days.
Not scary at all. This matchup doesn't scare me at all. What does scare me is the fact that, like, we saw Bryce Young for pretty much the entire season be absolutely horrible, and then he had this one huge game. I know it's the 49ers. I know it's a good matchup, but man, I do not want to get sucked into recency bias here. I'm going to reluctantly say super flex, but that's as high as I can go.
Now look, I get it. I do not like to overreact to one big game. The thing is, this defense, of course, the Niners decimated by injuries. Last month, they've been bottom 10 against quarterbacks for fantasy. But also what I guess encourages me in terms of potential upside for Bryce Young and this Panthers pass offense is the fact that the Niners offense is back and they look legit. They could put up a ton of points again this week like they did last week against Arizona. So I think Bryce Young is on the streaming radar. And then with Brock Purdy, I mean, I'm going higher. Obviously, I talked about him and the waiver wire video saying that he's your best option if he's available as a streamer and maybe a guy you could just set and forget if you're in a deeper league. But do you like him in this matchup?
You got to like him here. He looked fully healthy. He's got weapons everywhere. He's in this 49ers offense. Very solid this week.
All right, there you have it. That's everything you need to know about quarterback and tight end for week 12. But of course, you need to know about running back and wide receiver. So everything you need to win this week is going to be on the playlist.